The clock ticks down on the second special session. Parents who lost their children in the deadly Central Texas floods push for change.
If these changes aren't implemented, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
What's left on camp safety and other issues in the Capitol. Plus,
I think right now is a time of significant change and transition towards something better.
The future of Fort Worth with Mayor Mattie Parker. The state weighs whether to take over the local school district.
We want people to work hard, and we have people who are working hard. But hard work by itself doesn't get kids to learn how to read, write, and do math.
A candid conversation about the next steps right now on Lone Star Politics.
This is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Phil Prazan from NBC5.
And I'm Gromer, political writer with the Dallas Morning News.
Right now, Fort Worth is booming. This year, the city hit a milestone, according to census data, crossing the 1 million person threshold. It's officially surpassed Austin as the fourth largest city in Texas.
At the same time, Fort Worth ISD may face a state takeover as the district works to improve after several years of less than stellar accountability ratings. The Texas Education Agency intervenes when a campus gets a failing grade for 5 years in a row. Within Fort Worth ISD, the now closed Leadership Academy at Forest Oak failed from 2016 to 2019, and in 2023, when ratings were issued after COVID, the school failed again, meaning state intervention is on the table.
And the city of Fort Worth also has a new police chief. A familiar face in North Texas, former top cop in Dallas, is now the chief in Fort Worth.
To the people of Fort Worth, hear me clearly. I will work tirelessly for you. Every resident of this city deserves to feel safe in their home, in their neighborhoods, and on our streets.
He starts his new role September 22nd. Mayor Mattie Parker is now in her third term as mayor, reelected in 2025. In mid-September, the city council will vote on a budget. Parker manages a city in transition, growing, challenging, and in a rivalry with more partisan office holders at the county level. We went to Fort Worth to find out more. Let's first talk about the schools here in Fort Worth.
Sure.
Many people in the community feel like they're underperforming. What's your position on that?
Well, I think the data would tell you they're underperforming, and our residents, our parents, have a right to ask these questions. You know, how did we get here? And more importantly, what does the future look like to make sure that Fort Worth ISD becomes the best performing urban district in Texas rather than the worst performing district? And I think right now is a time of significant change and transition towards something better. You know, first day of school, I got to be with Dr. Karen Molinar and her team at several campuses, including Mary Louise Phillips Elementary School, which had significant growth in the last year, you know, going from an F to a B campus, and a recognition that change is possible even in a short period of time with excellent quality instruction, with the right level of leadership in your principals, autonomy for teachers, but also a real clear direction on what quality instruction looks like. But at the same time, as you well know, we have a long way to go.
Do you have an opinion on what the TEA should do? I guess there's really two options of closing campuses or taking over the district.
My allegiance is to Fort Worth ISD kids, our students in classrooms that don't get to redo first or second or eighth grade. Right, this is their educational journey, and we all can agree that education is the great equalizer and creates opportunity for students. I have seen remarkable change. I do think Dr. Karen Molinar is an excellent leader. I know her heart is with this district. When you walk the halls of our district today compared to a year ago, it is palpable. The difference in enthusiasm and focus is there. Now the question for Commissioner Morath and his team is to indicate whether or not it's enough change, and is he seeing what he needs to see? Because he gets one chance at this for a district in his state that has been underperforming for decades, and we owe it to these students to get it right.
It sounds like you're open to the state taking over, though.
I'm open to what is best for kids. If we can prove a convincing case from Commissioner Morath, and he can sit down with me and other stakeholders to say this is the only path to get our students where they deserve to be one of the highest performing districts, then I will be on board, right? If I'm not as quite as sure that this is the only path to take and I feel uncertain about the direction, then you'll hear me speak up about it.
It's budget season.
Yeah.
Perhaps your favorite time of year.
It should be, right? That's our number one job.
What are some of your priorities?
Yeah. Well, it's a continuation of what we know is working. You know, I've often said this over the last 4 years as mayor of Fort Worth, that city government should be the basics. It is about quality of life for every single resident that lives in our city, that wants to move here, businesses that are looking at Fort Worth. And that quality of life mentality should be applied to every single program, every single department. And it does start with public safety. The foundation of any thriving city is public safety, and that's everything from an excellent police department, which I believe we have the best police department in the entire country, to our fire department, now to our EMS services that have been moved into the city of Fort Worth as part of the Fort Worth Fire Department, from MedStar, code compliance, libraries. If you apply that tenet of we're going to have quality of life standards, we're going to run efficient government, and it will feel like a get to yes attitude, a customer service focus, and all of those things will continue in this budget.
The budget here in Fort Worth is going to go up in numbers-wise by about 11%.
Yeah.
Any community is going to have people who say, well, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
To the folks who say, why can't you cut more, what's your response?
Well, the number one reason you're seeing an increase of 11% this budget cycle is a few different tenets, if I'm not mentioned, but in particular, we moved over 600 EMT and paramedic employees from MedStar over to the Fort Worth Fire Department. And that was out of a demand and a need we heard from residents. We want faster response times. We want to average that 5.5 minutes, right? And that's what our residents deserve. And we felt confident this was the right move for life and safety purposes and public safety. And we're in the middle of that transition. We just got that started this summer. That would be number one in particular, and also responding to specific needs in the community. These are not frivolous programs or departments. These are particular issues that we hear from our residents on. I already mentioned the other two: infrastructure, street maintenance, in particular the better investments, additional money into our PAYGO fund, which is long-term capital maintenance over major of these programs, and fund balance, which is good for your bond rating in particular. Mm-hmm. So we're making these investments in a really smart way.
You are a nonpartisan mayor running
Yes, sir.
one of the largest cities in the country, but you are a Republican. Tarrant County is important in the political dialogue we have going on today. Are you concerned with some of the political rhetoric that's coming out with the local Republican Party, some of the fights that are being staged in the Tarrant County? How do you navigate all of that as the Fort Worth mayor and a Republican?
I navigate it by running a lot of miles every morning as to not be super stressed during the day, Gromer, if I'm being honest.
Right.
I am concerned, but I'm concerned for both parties. I'm concerned for our country. I really believe that 90% of the country is somewhere here in the middle, right? When I talk to residents, they may identify as Republican or Democrat, but they sympathize or want people to try to get along and try to find compromise. That's my job as your mayor. I couldn't get anywhere on any Tuesday or get any vote done if I wasn't willing to work with both sides. The rhetoric you've seen, particularly from the Republican Party in Tarrant County, is not only toxic, it can be dangerous, right? It's incredibly inflammatory, and it's not helpful at all. I've seen the same thing from the Democratic Party, both to me personally and across our state. So my point is, as a nonpartisan office holder, is how do you get back to what really matters? And luckily for me as mayor, I don't run in a partisan way to be elected as mayor. And of course, I often joke with my family and my husband, I'm always making somebody mad, so maybe I'm doing it right? I'm trying to find compromise wherever possible.
Gromer, we'll put more on this interview up online.
Yeah,
but
it's fascinating.
She is trying to carve out a bipartisan space in Tarrant County.
Yeah, in a county that's really the fight for control. Partisan control is raging, right? And so you have Fort Worth, a fast-growing city that has all kind of issues that aren't partisan. You know, people don't care about that partisan stuff when they have to have their basic services, right? So she's trying to navigate that space, and it's increasingly tough. In part of the interview, she admitted that she's being called a rhino in some quarters of the Republican Party. She has to deal with all that, keep her eye on the prize, and kind of do what's best for what the residents of Fort Worth, and that can be tough.
Up next, families fighting for change, parents of Camp Mystic victims turning their grief into action.
Plus, as the legislature prepares to wrap up the second special session, we're tracking progress on the governor's priorities as the countdown is on.
Major action we continue to watch in Austin is on flood recovery and response after the water rose in central Texas and killed more than 130 people, including 27 young girls at Camp Mystic.
Those parents have been advocating for change at summer camps across the state and appear to be making inroads. Governor Abbott outlined key priorities this special session. In it, camp safety, flood warning, and emergency communication.
NBC 5's anchor Meredith Land spoke with some of those families and has their story.
So why is this urgent? Why now? Why this special session now?
Because if we don't get it passed in this special session, it'll be January 2027 before another regular session is called, which would mean that would be one, potentially 2 summers. I mean, if you don't start until spring of 2027, you don't get anything passed before that you can, establish before that summer. So you're looking at summer of 2028 potentially before any of these changes are mandated. That's not a risk I would be willing to take again as a parent.
2 Dallas families changed by 7 weeks of mourning and united by the love and loss of their daughters.
They can only hope that time numbs, because it will never go away.
I spoke with the Bonner and Peck families, 2 of the 26 families tied to the Heavens 27 organization. The group of parents who lost children in the flood at Camp Mystic hopes to pass legislation protecting Texas campers.
Nothing will bring these girls back. We recognize that.
But they say passage of House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1 would solidify Heavens 27 Camp Safety Act as law. The parents' group priorities include prevention, detection, training, and response. They want structures out of flood zones, 24-hour emergency detection plans that include monitoring and notification systems, and evacuation plans.
There are very simple solutions here that revolve around simple items: prevention, making sure people don't sleep in floodplains, especially children; detection. I know there's been a lot out there in terms of early warning systems that do exist that just weren't funded. And then even detection on premise. If you don't have cell service and you don't have power, if you don't have a plan, how are you going to communicate with a number of 8- and 9-year-old girls that outnumber the adults by an order of magnitude? I mean, it's mind-boggling.
There was a sheet recovered from trunk that gave notes on emergencies and if someone got hurt, what to do. And the action in a flood it said on the sheet, to shelter in place.
To stay put, basically.
Which is not a plan.
If these changes, which as Blake identified, are common sense changes. I mean, it's common sense. If these changes aren't implemented, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
I wouldn't wish what we've gone through on my worst enemy.
Yep.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And it's of the essence that we have to get this done to make sure that it is, every child should be safe. Every child.
What can people do in this community? This community supported you a lot.
Call your legislators. Reach out to them. Support it. I mean, they're hearing it. So I think just keep reaching out if you support it.
Flood legislation is just one of the things that remains on the agenda for the special session. Speaker Dustin Burrows said this week they are hoping to wrap up by Wednesday, and there's a lot unresolved, Gromer.
This as Abbott added new items to the agenda this week. Lawmakers only have 30 days per special session, and this one started August 15th. Abbott said prior to the session he planned to keep calling sessions until his priorities are passed.
One stuck right now, THC changes. A plan to ban hemp-derived THC has stalled in the legislature. The Senate has passed a ban and sent it to the House, but it has not moved since. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wants a ban, but just 2 months ago, Abbott vetoed a bill pushing to legalize and regulate low levels for adults.
We are also anticipating action that could replace the STAR test, the end-of-the-year exam for Texas public school students that has been the subject of controversy. Wednesday night, the Texas Senate passed House Bill 8, changing the year-end STAR test to 3 smaller tests throughout the year, requiring results back to teachers and students within 48 hours. It would also include a committee of teachers to review the test. The TEA creates one key difference to be resolved between the two chambers: whether or not to include a history and social studies test.
The controversial new congressional maps will head to the courts. Governor Abbott signed them into law Friday. Starting October 1st, a judicial panel will take up the case, allowing for enough time to make a decision before the December filing deadline for the 2026 elections. Now, the maps will redraw several districts in an effort to turn 5 Democratic seats into Republican seats, a request of President Donald Trump to shore up a Republican majority heading into the 2026 midterms. Gromer, what's interesting, we came into this series of special sessions talking about THC, but yet THC is going to be one of the things that may not get done.
Yeah, isn't that something? I mean, that was the real reason, the big reason to have the special session. And just think about it, all that happened since, it really made that issue, something that's not a priority.
And it shows that emergencies and politics with the flooding bills and the redistricting can really change plans fast.
And Phil, it also shows you how important that initial 140-day session is. Mm-hmm. You just can't always rely on, I'm going to call a special session. Things happen, and that sometimes the timing doesn't work out.
This week, the Texas Supreme Court denied a request from Attorney General Ken Paxton to overturn a ruling stopping him from taking action against former Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Now, in response, Paxton cried foul, claiming judicial activism. So here's what happened. Paxton submitted an emergency appeal to the court, requesting a Court of Appeals order in Beto's favor to be overturned. The 15th Court of Appeals passed Paxton's ability to place a temporary restraining order, or TRO, on O'Rourke's fundraising for Democrats who'd left the state to break quorum. Originally, Paxton filed a suit in a Tarrant County District Court and was granted the TRO. A hearing was originally scheduled for this coming Tuesday.
And September 1st, new laws take effect in Texas. We're breaking down some of the big ones in education, healthcare, crime, and tech. That's the hit.
Gromer, more than 800 new laws take effect September 1st, impacting many different aspects of your life. We covered many of them throughout the year, but a few are worth mentioning again.
Starting with education, Senate Bill 1 is the state budget, including funding for school choice vouchers. Senate Bill 2 created the program. It won't take effect until the 2026-2027 school year. House Bill 1586 made it easier for parents to get vaccine exemptions, and Senate Bill 12 bans diversity programs in K-12 schools.
We also saw some major legislative change in health care. House Bill 4076 says organ transplant patients can't be refused if they don't have vaccines. House Bill 46 expands the state cannabis compassionate use program. And Senate Bill 1257 requires that any insurance company that covers gender transition procedures must now also cover reversal procedures.
Some noteworthy new laws on crime. HB 1902 makes jugging, the term used when someone follows a person from a bank or ATM to rob them, it makes it a felony. Several laws were passed related to human trafficking SB 835, also called Trey's Law, bans the use of non-disclosure agreements in sexual abuse cases, and HB 2000 requires people convicted of grooming to register as sex offenders.
We also saw some really interesting laws passed related to technology. House Bill 150 establishes the Texas Cyber Command to help prevent and respond to cyber attacks in the state. This was an emergency item by Governor Abbott this year. Several bills also regulate AI use in government. House Bill 3133 and SB 2373 deal with AI deepfakes and scams. Another one, House Bill 4751, fund the Texas Quantum Initiative, which sets aside funding for quantum research, the next big thing in computing. Gromer, I think...
That's a lot.
That's a lot. The school choice vouchers is going to be the big one, I think. It takes effect September 1st. They're going to have a year or so to find vendors to test the program, and then it becomes reality in 2027.
Yeah, and everybody is watching to see what was this all about. Was it much to do about nothing, or will this really impact the Texas education? And what will the impact be, Phil, on public schools?
It'll be a lot.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have. Stay tuned for Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. I'm Phil Prazan.
And I'm Gromer Jeffers. We'll see you back here next Sunday for more Lone Star Politics.